Hello everybody. Happy Monday, June, let's see, what is it? The 18th. I am in Stagecoach, Texas, which is northwest of Houston. Got in last night. So let me share this to my page. Hopefully I have a good enough connection. Sometimes connection goes between 1 bar and 2 bars. So I will try to get off of my iPad here as soon as I share it with a bunch of groups. So hopefully you guys had a good weekend, a good Father's Day. So let me share this to several groups. Let's see here. So welcome everybody. It's a little bit bright outside, but there's a good share of clouds, so hopefully it will be staying cloudy. I'm fortunate because where I was at yesterday up in Illinois, it's supposed to be like in the mid-90s, and back where I'm used to live at in Indiana, it's supposed to be really, really hot like a heat wave. And down here in Houston area, they've got some clouds that are here because of like a, I don't know, tropical something. I don't think it's a depression or something, but anyway, it's nice because it keeps it a little cooler. So it's only supposed to be, I think, a high of 81 today, which is fantastic. So hello everybody. Welcome Tina, welcome Mary, welcome David. I think that's good enough to share with for now. Today is going to be a good episode. In fact, I've shared it with a couple of narcissistic groups because I know that a lot of times people that are in the narcissistic groups don't understand that the root issue is Jezebel that we're going to be talking about today, the spirit. I'm going to explain a little bit about that spirit, what it does, and that there are ways to getting people to get set free and change from those evilness that they do that wreck so many marriages and hurt so many people's lives and so forth. So we will see some new people on here today. So last weekend I was in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, doing a Real You conference with Edie Bear. I'm actually staying with her and her husband, Daryl. Oh my gosh. Oh, that was weird. There was a fish over there that jumped out of the water onto the shore. I have never seen that. And it flipped itself back into the water again. Wow. Don't know if that was symbolic or not, but anyway, had a great time last weekend. Had some people that had heard for the first time the message about the spirits of Jezebel, Leviathan, Ahab, how it controls our marriages, how it hurts us, and so forth. So had some people get set freed from that. And then last week I was in Detroit, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I've heard some continued testimonies from people that have gotten set freed from those spirits that did not know that they had it. And one of them was a woman who had been depressed and had anxiety ever since she could remember. And she got completely set freed from that. It's been now, 5 days since then now, and she said that she's had so much peace and so much joy, and that's awesome. And then there was another guy that was suicidal as he was hearing the voices of the enemy, and he got delivered, and he no longer has that either, and he's doing great. And then another man just messaged me yesterday that he used to have a lot of anger that was pent up that would come out, and he said the next day he woke up, he said he didn't have it anymore. He wasn't hearing the voices too. He said he didn't have chatter in his mind. Of course, a lot of people understand that that chatter is the enemy's voice causing us to behave horribly. And so anyway, great testimonies. Again, we're seeing thousands around the world getting set freed from the spirits of Jezebel, Leviathan, Ahab. And again, those that have the stronger spirits of Jezebel would be considered narcissists, which are not nice people. They are just people hate them that are married to them because they're horrible to them. But again, if you understand, it comes from out of having father wounds and mother wounds and being sexually touched inappropriately, incest, molested. When you understand that that's why these people become narcissists, become very controlling and focusing on themselves and thinking they're all beautiful and handsome and you should serve them and get down on your knees and blah, blah, blah. They're hearing the voices of the enemy ever since they were a kid. When you understand that that's how it came in and that those voices continue to proliferate, then you can have a little more grace for them and understanding even though a lot of people don't like them. So anyway, Father's Day was interesting for me. So that was yesterday, of course. So happy Father's Day, belated to all those fathers that are watching this. This is my second straight Father's Day that I've missed being around my kids because of ministry. So I've been really busier than all get out. But it's funny because the last two times I was with Edie Bear doing ministry. Last year I was in Ohio, and this year I was in Illinois. So we actually got to, she drove her truck and I drove my SUV down so that way we at least had each other to watch out for each other for any traffic and stuff. In fact, it was funny, interesting, we were like in, I think, southern Illinois, or no, I think we were in Missouri, and the traffic started slowing down, and all of a sudden there was like fire next to the road, burning grass. And I was like, what, where are the firemen at? You know, we need firemen out here on the interstate. So that was kind of crazy. So anyway, so today, going to be talking about Jezebel preys upon your weaknesses. So again, if you are coming in and watching this from the narcissist group, narcissists prey upon your weaknesses. You know, if you are, you know, married to someone that has that spirit, then obviously they're going to target you because you are nice. And that spirit knows that if you are nice, that they want you because they can control and dominate you. And if you are, and again, we know Jezebels marry people that have the spirit of Ahab. Ahab people don't like to confront. They like to get along with people. They are normally very nice people, but they tend to marry people that have those controlling spirits of Jezebel, would be considered narcissists. And so therefore they make a mess in marriages. And so it explains it all when we understand it from a spiritual component. It doesn't make it go away. The only thing that can make it go away, you know, to get a person set free and changed and delivered from those spirits, is they have to choose to forgive all those that hurt them. They have to mean it. They can't just say, I choose to forgive them, and then hate them in their hearts, because then that spirit has a right to continue to stay on them. But they have to choose to forgive all their dads and moms and those that sexually touch them inappropriately, to start to break down that spirit's legal right to continue to torment them in their mind. And the second thing they have to do is they have to humble themselves. And of course, those that have a strong Jezebel narcissist would be labeled as, they would be very hard to humble themselves. So oftentimes the Lord wants to humble them for themselves, and cause everybody that was in relationship with them to leave them, so they have no friends anymore. But again, they're very good liars. They're master liars. They're very good at manipulating. And today I want to focus on not so much the husband-wife relationships, because I talk about that all the time. And again, if those of you watching this want to go out to learn more about that, you can go out to my website, restoredtofreedom.com. You can read more about that. I've got a blog out there that talks a lot about that. So just look at Jezebel, the blog. And today I want to focus on, though, you know, what happens when you have a person that is, say, in ministry or in business, and they come alongside of you and they start to be nice to you, and they have that spirit of Jezebel, or they're considered narcissists. How do you discern it? I know in my case, I'm going to give an example, personal example of mine. So the Lord had me marry my second wife, and I went through a lot of extreme abuse. I had to go through it. It's part of my ministry. So in order to come into an extreme anointing to help people get delivered around the world, you have to go through some extreme stuff. So I went through it. I didn't tell anybody about it like I was supposed to do. The Lord asked me not to tell anybody. So for 6 years I suffered from that. But I know that spirit inside and out. I know how the narcissist would call it, you know, how they like to love bomb, and they come in and they want to control you and manipulate you and so forth. But what about when you have another person that becomes your friend, and they act all sweet and nice and they appear to be on your side? How do you discern that? You know, how easy is it? Well, it's not easy. You know, I was deceived. I had after I'd separated from my wife, and then the divorce went through. That was in the end of November, actually November 20th, 2015, it was final. But it was about a year after that there's a gentleman that was introduced to me through another pastor friend, and he was a part of this team in Indianapolis that was going to be reaching out to the homeless. And so after I had shared a little bit about my ministry and how I was helping people get set free from these spirits, he kind of took me aside and had a private conversation with me and said that he had basically been used to help people who needed, you know, finances to help grow their ministries. So of course that perked my ears up right away, because I had taken on all this debt from my second wife, a lot of her son's debts and so forth. It was about $80,000, and so I was looking forward to anything I could to help that process. And so we sat down to lunch, and I explained to him about my testimony. He seemed so sweet, so nice, and said he used to work for this large diamond company in Texas, and he used to go to South Africa a lot, and knew his authority in Christ. He said everything that would draw me in. And he started drawing in other people as well. He was talking about ultimately he had a lot of home churches in the Indiana area that, I don't know, something like a couple hundred home churches or something, and that the Lord was moving powerfully. And he said all the right things, to draw me in and to draw in other people. And one thing, though, that he wanted me to do is to hang out with him like 3 times a week. And I'm like, I need to kind of make some money so that I can pay my bills. And he's like, well, basically I'll take care of all that. We have these multimillionaires that are part of my board, and we just have to, let this go on. And by the time the new year comes into place, we'll end up putting you in position, and you can be in charge of this, getting these people to learn about their authority and teach this. And he was drawing in another friend of mine as well. It was from California. Well, after I'd spent several months spending time with him, he was drawing in other pastors, and we'd have breakfast where we'd have kind of a Bible study, but then yet he would share the same stories over and over again. And so that became a red flag to me. I'm like, wait a minute, why is he sharing the same stories over and over again? And then I would ask him, can I go observe one of these home churches that you have? And he said, no, we have to be very careful. We have to guard and protect. And that was another red flag. But yet the money, being tempted, needing the money that I needed, would pull me in and tempt me to want to give him the benefit of the doubt. That's what those spirits of Jezebel, the narcissists, do, is they will prey upon your weakness. They know, that demon knows in them what you need and what you're looking for. And oftentimes, they go after the Ahabs, which are good people, which are oftentimes people that are nice and that want to give people the benefit of the doubt. So they're already getting them to draw in, but then they can discern what their needs are. Oftentimes it's financial. So if you have a financial need, they're going to act like they're a millionaire. They're going to act like they've got a lot of money or whatever to pull you in. So anyway, I spent time with him from around September until mid-January. And at that point, I was expecting to have him, start to pay me basically, so that I could put things into position. And he'd already drawn in something like 7 or 8 other, maybe 10 other people in ministries. Well, then I finally called him on it, because I'm like, okay, wait a minute. We're almost at the end of January. You haven't paid me a dime yet. And I remember we'd have lunches, and he would pay for maybe half of them, but he would want to say, well, I don't want to steal the blessing from you guys, so you can go ahead and pick it up today. Well, I had no money. I had a lot of debt. And so occasionally I would try to scrump, together whatever, $40, $50, so I could pay lunch. And he was like, wow, God's going to really bless you. And I was like, wow, gee, it doesn't seem like it, because I keep going into, having more debt and I can't get it. Oh, no, you got to trust God. He said everything that he was supposed to say to draw me in, and others. And so finally I called him upon it in middle of January. This was in 2017. It was last year. And he was like, well, you shouldn't be expecting money. We should be doing this, freely given and freely give away, And I'm like, well, wait a minute, you're twisting the scriptures there. I'm like, no, you promised me you were going to do this, and now you're backing away, you're backing off. So right away, I ended up cutting things off. And then I asked the Lord, I'm like, Lord, why did you have me waste my time with this gentleman that long? He said, well, Nestle, the reason why is because I want you to understand just how cunning, how good of liars that these people that have Jezebel, that are narcissists, have. Because if you didn't know that, he goes, as your ministry grows and gets larger around the world, you'll get duped. So he said that, yes, they are very, very, very good at preying upon your weakness. They know exactly what you needed. He goes, no, you were not, you're not lusting after money or anything like that. You needed that. You wanted the debt paid off. And that was a good thing. But that spirit in him knew that. And so that's why he's drawing you into that. Well, after I cut things off with him, the Lord started opening up the doors to me now. Started to bless me with more ministry than what I could handle. I remember I went out to California in April. I spent almost a month out there in California doing ministry. and I went all over from like San Diego to Redding and Fresno and San Francisco. I went to healing rooms. I went to churches. I did individual counseling, individual sessions. Sorry about that. Connections sounds like it's not real strong, so hopefully it will get better, or at least when I post this. So Lord, in the name of Jesus, we just command right now a better connection to come into place in Jesus' name. So I'll continue, and if we do a replay, hopefully it will have everything on there. So anyway, the Lord started opening the doors to me, and I started getting busier than all get out doing these sessions all over the place. I went from out in California in April to then New York. So I went to New York, I went to New Jersey, I went to all over the place out in the Northeast, and did sessions, and it started growing. And that's really when it became full-time ministry for me, was in June of last year. So it's been a year, and it seems like it's been about 5 years that I've been doing this full-time, as the Lord's just really blown it up. So that was kind of the last major hurdle for me that the Lord wanted me to go through, so I could be exposed to seeing how that spirit will operate. And so if you are in ministry at all, if you have a desire for that, you're going to also have to contend with someone that has a strong spirit of Jezebel. Could be multiple people. And why is that? Well, just like Elijah in the Bible had to contend with Jezebel, the actual Queen Jezebel, those that are in ministry at any level are going to have to contend with it as well. And it's not fun at all. I was just talking to a lady friend of mine that just became aware of a situation that had entangled her for about 3 months. And now she's learned some things, and she's like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe he was so good at being charismatic and lying and pulling us in financially and all this, and now she knows the truth. And it's kind of scary, because you want to believe people. You want to believe people, you want to think that they have the up and up, that they're going to be honest, that they're not going to be lying to you. And unfortunately, they do that. So I'm going to continue on talking. I know it says it's buffering, so hopefully, again, the connection will get stronger in the name of Jesus. We just declare that. So essentially, I want you guys to be aware. I want you to be aware that when you are having conversations and relationships with people, to always have your radar turned on, and to be aware if they're trying to suck you in. And if things sound too good to be true, then oftentimes they are. And so you have to be aware of that, and you have to make sure your radar is turned on. Oftentimes you'll see it within about 3 to 4 months, because they cannot stay pure and honest on the up and up forever. So eventually you just have to make sure that you don't look the other way with the red flags. You have to make sure that you understand that, okay, these things are not good, they're not lining up to be correct, they're saying things to me that they sound too good to be true, and they most likely are. In a lot of cases, they could be considered like psychopaths and sexual predators and things like that. So you have to be very careful, especially women that are single. You need to be very, very careful if you're talking to men. Unfortunately, there's a lot of men that have the spirits of Jezebel, of course, women as well, but they will tell you what you want to hear. They will actually study you and what your likes are and dislikes on Facebook. And then they will end up becoming that person that they know that you want. And then it may take you a couple of months before you start seeing truth from some of their actions. You got to look at actions, because actions speak louder than words. So you have to see what they actually do behind closed doors. Sometimes it's hard to, because you're not around them 24 hours a day. So it's important for us to make sure we have our radar on and to not get duped into that. But again, I was duped into it, and I was pretty aware of Jezebel. I went through an extreme case of that, but they are so good at telling you what you want to hear, and that will draw you in. Oftentimes they will look for if you have a need for finances, and they could lie about that and say that they have all this money, and they could drive a fancy car. Or in the case of my guy, he drove like a Hyundai, and he said that he used to have a Bentley, is what he would say. I used to have a Bentley, I used to have this or that, but it was just too much, and people thought that I was just so rich, and so he was playing it off and lying about it the whole time. So yeah, I just drive this Hyundai because it makes me appeal more to the common man. And of course that drew me in, thinking, oh wow, what a humble guy this is. You know, he could afford any car he wants out there, but then half the time he'd want other people to pick up the bill. You know, so you can't look at the red flags and just dismiss them. You have to be aware of what they're going to do, but they're going to look for your weaknesses. So if your weakness is that you desperately want another fish jumped out. If you desperately want a husband or a wife, you know, they could play into that and say, you know, hey, I'll be your husband, I'll be your wife, and be all sweet and nice, but they cannot do it forever. That's why it's so important to get to know a person over time. You know, don't ever get married to anybody in less than a year, because that spirit in them can cause them to behave and tell you what you want to hear in the short term, but they cannot do it in the long term. So time will expose the truth. So give it as much time as you need. And if they put pressure on you to get married, if they put pressure on you to do a deal, then do not fall for that. You know, the Lord does not pressure us. That's the enemy. So back away, back off. And then you have to be careful when you exit a relationship with them, because they could be vindictive. They could try to come after you, you know, and lie about you and manipulate. You know, that's what they'll try to do as well. So you have to be thick-skinned about it. You know, again, if you have a stronger Ahab spirit where you're weak and you want to get along with people, that oftentimes they know how to pray against you. They know how to come against you. They know how to, you know, try to become friends with your family members, friends with your friends. They can go on Facebook and start friending people. That's another red flag. You know, if you have a relationship with someone, all of a sudden they start friending all of your friends. You know, all your friends get requests and they have one mutual friend and it's that person. Then that could be a huge red flag as well. So don't look the other way when the red flags come in. You know, we need to be aware of all that. We need to know that, and to not look the other way. And ultimately, if you are, you know, prophetic, if you are gifted, you're going to have to contend with that spirit. Oftentimes, people that are prophetic have that spirit, so you need to get delivered yourself. But even though that I'm delivered, you know, and I'm very perceptive on this, you know, I could have a person try to come into my ministry team and still have that spirit on them. And I need to make sure that I do not allow them to join and then try to cause conflicts behind the closed doors, because they're so good at lying and manipulating and twisting, and not nice. It's just not nice to have situations like that to come again. So again, just be aware of what your weaknesses are. If you are clingy and needy and desiring of a mate, then that spirit will pick up on that, and they will know it. And they will do whatever they can to try to position themselves into being your future husband or wife. And then before you know it, you've committed everything to them, you get married, and then all of a sudden you wake up, maybe that night, you know, the next day, and you all of a sudden, oh my gosh, who did I marry? This person is a narcissist. They're Jezebel. They're a Leviathan. And they are not who they portray themselves to be. So that's not cool. So anyway, hopefully that helps those of you to just be aware, be on your guard. Again, I hate to have to take that position. I'd rather like to think that everyone is loving, sweet, precious, but they're not. Even those that follow my ministry. You know, I've seen some, you know, comments and stuff from people where I can read between the lines. I can know exactly that that person's still dealing with the spirits of Jezebel and Leviathan, trying to cause some conflict. So you have to be careful, because sometimes I have to block them from the Jezebel, Ahab, Leviathan support group. So anyway, tonight I will be interviewed by Dr. Marshall Lee at KBN TV in Houston at 7 o'clock Central. And then the rest of this week I'll be doing my own TV show recordings. On Saturday I will be in Houston at the home of Patty and Paul Vellis at 7 o'clock. And then next Tuesday and Wednesday I'll be up in Lubbock, Texas, and at the home of Sharon Bond and her husband, I think his name's Kenneth. And then July 1st and 2nd, I will be in Caldwell, Texas at the Glory Hub Church, which is southwest of College Station. And then July the 6th, I'll be in San Antonio at a home in Boerne, Texas. And I'll be heading to Canada, July 13th and 14th. I'll be doing a deliverance on a Friday night and then a training on a Saturday at the Prayer Center in St. Catharines. That's in Ontario. And then I will be heading to Montana out west, Montana, Idaho, Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona between the end of July and the end of September. So that is my itinerary, that's my schedule. And again, if you want me to come and